Anuschka, and I'm from SAPS, the Scottish Association for Marine Science. So we've been lots of places on the land. I'm now trying to kind of make sure that we all understand how important the ocean is, also as part of Argyle, all our islands and for our planet in general. It gets often forgotten, just like our soil gets often forgotten. The things that we don't live in, we seem to always think of as being somehow inferior. I couldn't agree more with the first speaker about the importance of the soil. I'm a biogeochemist. I've learned that everything you can see is irrelevant to the functioning of our planet. The really important things are the microbial worlds, and that is true probably everywhere. The other thing that I think is important to understand is that our brains think like our world, but the planet is probably working a little bit differently to us. We think of things as individuals. Even when we think about conservation, very often thinking about conservation of individual species. That's what we're interested in, rather than habitat systems and so on. So I think we are trying to kind of bring a new understanding in there. What I could have talked about lots of things that we do at SAMS that relate to climate, to land use and so on, but I chose to talk about a project that I've been lucky enough for the last 4 years to spend about a day a week on, the Marine Protected Area Management and Monitoring Project. That's been working with partners from Ireland, Northern Ireland and Scotland to really look at how what improvements we can make to our marine protected areas. And that's where I am a lecturer, so I can go on for a very long time. So I thought rather than doing that, I start off with a small film that we've made, or an animation that we've made, that sets out marine protected areas here in Argyle.
A marine protected area, or MPA, is an area of the shore or sea that is designated by law to protect species, habitats, or historic landmarks, such as shipwrecks. In Scotland, we currently have 247 MPAs, each of which have different measures, licensing and guidelines put into place to support conservation in these areas. The Argyle Marine region stretches from Appin in the north to the tip of Kintyre in the south, encapsulating the 23 inhabited islands of the Inner Hebrides. Within the region, there are 24 MPAs, which protects some of Scotland's most iconic wildlife, including puffins, harbour porpoises, minke whales, and basking sharks. Argyle is also home to some lesser-known animals and habitats that are also of national and international importance. Did you know there are many different types of reef? From rocky outcrops of bedrock, boulders and cobbles to reefs built by animals such as horse mussel beds and circulid reefs, with the largest and oldest known circulid reef in the world being found in Loch Creren. These reefs, as well as other habitats including whorl beds and flameshell beds, help to stabilise the seabed and provide suitable habitat for other plants and animals, increasing biodiversity. In deeper waters, where there are little water movement, you can find plains of mud on the seafloor. These low-energy, muddy environments form the perfect habitat for a range of wildlife, including delicate sea pens and fire-working enemies and burrowing animals, such as nephrops. Also, in deeper muddy areas, you might be lucky to spot another seafloor dweller, the flapper skate. Skate belong to the shark family and have only a cartilaginous skeleton. The flapper skate is the largest skate species in Europe, with females measuring up to 2.8 metres long and weighing over 100 kilograms. Shipwrecks also form an important part of Argyle's marine environment. In the Sound of Mull, the wreck sites of 3 17th century vessels can be found, each designated as an historic MPA. The MPAs in Argyle not only protect these important species, habitats and wrecks, improve biodiversity and reduce seabed damage, but also provide other opportunities and benefits. By increasing knowledge and awareness of MPAs, we can gain a better understanding of what activities are and aren't allowed within the sites. This can lead to an increase in conduct and compliance with restrictions. It can also help to empower stakeholders and communities with their knowledge and lead to an increase in local guardianship. By improving our sense of connection, ownership and legacy, we can encourage stakeholders to work collaboratively and enable them to get involved with activities such as monitoring and reporting, providing a great opportunity to increase our scientific evidence base. MPAs can even help to support local communities by increasing opportunities for sustainable activities and help enhance local maritime assets. By 2026, the Scottish Government aims to make at least 10% of Scotland's seas highly protected marine areas, meaning that only activities that are non-damaging will be allowed to take place inside of that area. There are a number of ways you can get involved in your MPAs. If you spot wildlife, you can submit this information to online citizen science portals. For whales and dolphins, visit the Hebridean Whale and Dolphin Trust's Whale Track. For birds, go to Bird Track. Or, for sharks and egg cases, go to the Shark Trust's Recording Hub. And if you don't know what you've spotted, why not look it up on iSpot or iRecord? You can also get involved in community-led monitoring through Nature Scott's community-led Marine Biodiversity Monitoring Project. For more information and to virtually explore the MPAs in Argyll, please follow the link in the description below.
So that's just the lecturing done. I kind of thought, so this...
A marine protected area or bubbles to read.
So what I thought I'll do, it's a big project, and I speak a huge amount of work, and MPAs are big topics. So what I thought I'll do is much more take a little bit of a personal journey as to what I personally, not as a project, not as SAMS, anything else, what were my, what challenges do I see MPAs are having. So they have quite a bad press quite often because they're seen as paper parks, or how effective are they? And so I think that there are lots of issues associated still with MPAs. They're there really as something to protect, and I think just like we all want a good climate for, like you loved the introduction at the beginning, we all agree that we want to have a habitable planet, but actually doing that's quite difficult. So that's a problem. In so many ways. And first of all, when we do look at the lack of knowledge, we know so much about the land, and still we don't know enough. We've seen the problems that farmers have, and that the forestry we're having. In the marine environment, we are way behind, so we are much less knowledgeable about the species that are there. So we don't even know where the species are. How many are there? I mean, it's really hard, even just imagine just how hard it is to count birds, you know. They fly about all the time, they all look the same. How do you know which ones you've counted? So it took a long time to learn how to do that with ringing and with all of these kind of methods that have evolved. If you're looking deeper into the ocean, it becomes much more difficult to do anything that doesn't pop out because we can't see into it. So our knowledge is really limited. What we've done with this project is that we've tried to come up with models like this ones, which don't actually go and count on our Scottish seabed how much of what is where, but where we have where we build statistical models because we know what the seabed's like, what the ocean currents are like, what the depth is like, to kind of say these are environments where these species are likely to live. Because in order to conserve, first of all, you've got to know where they are, how much they are they actually protected, how do they reproduce, how many offspring have they got. There's so much knowledge for thousands of species, an awful lot of which at the moment we simply don't have. So quite often we want to protect, but we need a lot more research and science, I'm afraid. You'd probably say I'd say that, but I would, because we really at the moment, however willing we are to protect areas, we often haven't got the skills yet to know how to do that effectively. We all want to be healthy, and yet we don't always know how to be healthy. We all want to heal people who have diseases, yet we can't necessarily do so without more research. And when we're looking at the marine environment, we are looking very, very much at the bottom of our knowledge base. So there's an awful lot of things that we simply don't know. So our first real challenge when it comes to proper protection of the environment is the fact that we have a very great lack of knowledge. The next slide, please. The next slight complication is when we create MPAs, which are legislative tools where you have years of consultations, years of consultation, and yet we are creating these in times of climate change. where the habitats may well be not the same by the time, in 10 years' time, when our MPAs are in place. So how do we deal with this? I've got a nice picture here of Newcastle on the Mourne coast in Northern Ireland, where there's a whole town built around these lovely golden beaches, which then 50 years later had migrated further down the coast. And an entire business had sprung up about these beaches, and then people try and put new sand down, and yet again the currents take it away. It's really difficult. How do we build habitats? So we've got to understand about these dynamic changes, as well as what are the species going to do. We've created some predictions as to how our birds are going to change. And also what technology is going to change, what human use is going to change. So looking into all of that is something that also feeds into trying to build good MPAs. Next slide, please. The key, I think the hardest of them all, though, is actually how do we involve people. We have extremely low ocean literacy. We know really little. It's not in the national curriculum. Lots of people in cities never think about the ocean beyond going on holiday to Mallorca or somewhere and lying on the beach. And yet this is the most important life support system of them all. And to create the atmosphere we breathe, everything is related to the ocean. So we have to do something about increasing our ocean literacy. Policymakers can perhaps help us with the curriculum, but it's a hard one. Whenever people go out to consultation, there's very few people getting involved or responding to it, and those people that do get involved are largely those because people feel, I don't know my place in this, so it's largely those people who have a real stake in it, which are often, the people that make a living from it, but also lobby groups, so it's quite hard. And then these groups can be quite confrontational, and not at all working together, but against each other, because everybody's kind of arguing for their side, for their point. So we need to find a better way, really, of those involving stakeholders, everybody understanding everybody alive is a stakeholder and should be a little bit involved in this. And we need to develop, a societal discourse that trusts more. I think we all have become very untrustworthy. Everybody kind of assumes the worst of the other. They just want to get most for themselves. And by then not working together, we don't get to know each other, and it's so nice to kind of point the finger at other people that we don't know and think that they're the bad ones. And we've really got to crack that, because otherwise we cannot jointly build how we use a space and how to preserve that space so that in the future generations can still use that space, or we will all disappear. Final slide, please. And then, just to make it a little bit more difficult yet, is that, of course, what we do here in Argyll is important, but it needs to be an international effort, and we unfortunately have very little now of international bodies where this is really coordinated with teeth. So I think that's where it is a real problem. So this project that I've been part of brought these three areas together, because you can't conserve a flapperscape in one area only. You have to look at how these places are connected, and you have to actually take a transnational approach to this, and we don't have many of these large bodies left. The UN has very little teeth, they're not part of the EU anymore. It's really, really difficult. Where do people actually talk with each other to solve these massive problems that we have? So this is just my little kind of contribution as to what challenges do I see, but also what massive progress I have seen over the time. 20 years ago we had no MPAs, now we do have them. We have a commitment from policymakers that they understand that this matters globally. There's a global commitment to it. There is an increasing knowledge, all of these projects. We grow our knowledge all the time. We found out as part of our project how long flapperscape eggs take until they hatch. Even that simple thing wasn't known before this project. There's small things. So we do find out things. But I think where the biggest contribution really has to come is how society discusses these issues. We need to, unfortunately, make decisions before we will have all the data available, and we have to therefore understand that we will make mistakes, but we mustn't necessarily think that they've been made out of bad intentions, but perhaps just because that was the best knowledge at the time, and we constantly have to recorrect them. Thank you.